Hello. Мне 20 лет. I am 20 years old. Меня зовут Антонян. My name is Peter Pockets. Мне приснился сон. I had a dream. In the dream, some kind of woman told me that I will die at 31 on my birthday, the 31st of December, exactly 31 minutes before the new year. Then my fortune was read on playing cards, and they fell the same. Then my fortune was read on some kind of nuts. The nuts also agreed. Now I know that in 11 years I will not be, and what will come after that I don't know. That is the question. I'm walking through the street and through the parks and in other places too, but still these thoughts keep coming up in my head. I am thinking, oh Lord, that's what I'm thinking. I am walking through the street, but still these thoughts keep coming up. Oh Lord, every second I am thinking. Oh Lord, every second I am thinking. Incredible. A person is born, and the first thing they get is a tag on their wrist. And then when a person dies, they get a tag on the big toe of their right foot. Thus is the life of man. It is a fragment of time. From tag to tag. I am 21. It's spring. A sparrow was flying into the metro station. A group from England is enraptured by Grand Central 42nd Street Station. I just remembered. I'm riding the escalator. I'm remembering all sorts of nonsense. We had a lieutenant once who would always sleep at his post. First we gave him a piece of our minds. Don't sleep at your post. But he slept. Then we gave him latrine duties for a week. Don't sleep at your post. Then we revoked his R&R. Don't sleep at your post. Then we beat him to shit. Don't sleep at your post. Then we killed him. Don't sleep at your post. But all the same, he slept, and to this day he continues to sleep. I love trees. I love mountain ash and cottonwoods and pines, and I even love aspens, but oaks I can't understand. And what's more is in the upper Midwest we don't have any of these oaks, but that didn't make me love them more. In fact, it was the other way around, and so there I was, facing the fact, in Central City, in Central Park, in Northwoods, and there was nowhere to spend the night, while all around me stood oaks. It was at that moment that I came to love them, and I fell asleep, and to this day I am sleeping, but one day I'll wake up, and I don't know, will my love survive or not? They say oaks are forever, while love is a passing thing. Your eyes on the road and your hands upon the wheel. Оно в парке. Люди кружатся, кружатся как безумные. Keep your eyes on the road and your hands upon the wheel. А колесо не зря называют чертовым. Черт его выдумал колесо. We're going to the roadhouse, we're gonna have a real good time. Только на чертовом колесе и чувствуешь себя свободным. Кружишься, кружишься и счастлив, потому что черт это свобода. Потому что свобода это колесо. At the back of the roadhouse they got some bungalows. И от этой мысли делается так красиво. At the back of the roadhouse they got some bungalows. Чертово колесо — это когда ты секунду в городе, и через несколько секунд над ним. And that's for the people who like to go down real slow. Oh, 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 let it roll, baby, roll. И это свобода. Let it roll, baby, roll. И это выбор. Let it roll, baby, roll. Каждый может выбрать, где ему лучше в городе. do I meet with my friend Christopher S. very rarely, when we both had a birthday and turned 22. We were standing at a window and looking at ourselves in the reflection, and then my friend went away, went far, far away. I am writing a letter. Chris, I love. And now I will list off to you all the objects of my love. I love matches, dried wood, the smell of gasoline, high planes, Hoover vacuums, Oreo cookies, my mama. I love happiness and beautiful photographs. I love Sophie and the word transistor and the word headbutt. I love my country and I'm not afraid to admit it. I love bourbon, gumbo, girls with skinny fingers, my son and his mother, the music of Mozart and Vivaldi, kefir, root beer, and adventures. But Chris, my love is not reciprocated. Of all the objects listed above, everybody loves me. Mozart is crazy about me, matches adore me, the transistor too is head over heels for me, but alas, I am loved not by Sophie, nor by my country. Choked to death from asthma in a town near St. Louis, while his second wife, my grandmother, died by falling from her rocking chair and beating up her tailbone. But my mother still insists that this was all the magic of love. And my friend Ian Anthony's grandfather, because he was jealous of his old lady and their neighbors, smashed the telephone receiver over her head and then filed for divorce. Now they are clearing up their relationship status in heaven. And one old lady, as it was written in the papers, poisoned her beloved of 58 years old because when they got married, she was 34 and he was 22. But after a while, it turned out that he was 12 years younger than her. And in the courtyard at my son and his mother's place, there sit the same old ladies, and their winter is exactly like the winter they had 60 years ago. Snow rests on their eyelashes, and it is still high time for them to get hitched. And when my young neighbor became a young widow, she took the puppy that was bought 1 week before her young husband's death and drowned it in a bucket. None of this is happening because love is abided to by all ages. In fact, it's just the opposite. Because all ages are absolutely disobedient to love. Everybody is resistant to love as much as they can possibly be. Some shoot love with a double-barrel shotgun, some stab love with a knife, some break a vacuum over love's head, and so on. Christopher Seymour Blanche from Poughkeepsie treated his wife in the most cruel way possible. He up and left her, and she was alone for so long that she even had to go and get pregnant by another man. And HIV-positive Marshall V. from Missoula, having rubbed the golden lamp which he happened upon in a cave, made 3 wishes in the name of love. Now he is full of delicious food, can call himself Prince, and lives in Sultan's Palace, 6 feet underground at Lancaster Cemetery. Continuing this list of lovers, I would like to mention energy plant employee Daryl Ignatius Valance, a worker in the Colorado Springs power plant at the base of the Rocky Mountains. He set fire to his 19-year-old wife in the broiler, and hundreds of residents in the surrounding area warmed themselves to well-heated coils in their space heaters. She was sacrificed to the fire for the very reason that she lost her youth and beauty too early. After all, just 1 year before, Daryl Ignatius had cut up her face with a razor blade in order to protect her whorish breed from the glances of passing men. Love is not abided to by any age. My acquaintance, a minister, 30-year-old Father Clyde from Milwaukee, having not yet lived the 70 years to his 100-year-old jubilee, dealt with the object of love in the following way. When he was 20, he fell suddenly, drunkenly in love with 16-year-old Vera Grieverson. He got her pregnant and made her marry him, after which he immediately donned the cloth, and through the duration of their entire life together demanded of her that she love him with quite a celestial concern, with which he included acceptance of his way of life, celibacy all day on Sunday, attending church services, and in no case whatsoever never to commit adultery. But when that Vera just once took up and ran off with the computer programmer from Madison, he overtook the Jezebel. And first, knocked her off a rocking chair so she would beat up her tailbone. Then, He smashed the telephone over her head and filed for divorce. After that, he fed her toxic pills, shot her with a double-barrel shotgun, stabbed her with a knife, and finally set fire to her in the Colorado Springs power plant at the base of the Rocky Mountains. And on her gravestone, he cynically wrote, "The bishop, he bought a beautiful brown beagle. The bishop, he loves his beautiful brown beagle." Although this list of lovers does not come to any end here, after all, our children are growing up. 1 year ago, back when we were still students, we would sign our letters with the names of the greats. 1 year ago, when I turned 23, back then I still lived in my own hometown, I got a letter from my friend Ian, which read as follows. "Hello, Peter. I hope you answer me back. It's extremely important. Anna left me for Worthington. He's more talented than I am, and now I found myself with such a bitch that it's even scary to me. Your friend, Frank Sinatra." "Hello, Ian. To be honest, if I had been in Anna's place, I would have done the same thing. Sorry, but now what would I have done in your place? First off, after graduating high school, I would have gone to Missoula and became an art major at the University of Montana. There I would have fallen in love with my classmate, Marilyn Monroe. Would have graduated college, married Marilyn, and set off for New York City, where I would have enrolled in classes at the Manhattan School of Music, while Marilyn would have stayed in Missoula and waited for me for 2 years, staying true in her faith and constancy, but then she would have dropped everything and rushed off to New York City, throwing away her blossoming career in Missoula, and also that she could just be closer to me. However, to live with me in my dormitory she would not have been allowed, and therefore she would have settled down in another place in a town called Yonkers. And we would have seen each other only every so often, and when we met I would have sometimes been kind of drunk and would have talked a lot of bullshit. Then Marilyn would have realized there's no reason to wait around for me anymore, and would have left me for the actor Worthington. Not because he's more talented than I am, although he is very talented, but because he is a good person. Then I would have found myself with such a bitch that it would have been scary even to me. And then at last I would have written a letter to my friend, that is to myself, in which I would have told the whole story in a few short sentences. That's what I would have done in your place, but alas, I am in my own place and I have done things a little bit differently. After high school, I became a pre-med major at Missoula Community College. There I fell in love with my classmate, Scarlett O'Hara. And I married her, and we had a son, and we lived through 6 terrible and wonderful years together. I went to New York City and enrolled in part-time classes at a technical institute. I treated my wife, Scarlett, very poorly, carelessly, because I know the 2 major secrets of life. First, that life is meaningless and there's no difference whatsoever how we treat one person or another. The second secret I'll reveal to you at the end of this letter. Before long, Scarlett left me for another very good person, while I set out in search for scary bitches. But alas, I've come across only divine angels. And then one fine day, I received a letter from you in which you said this and that. And now I'll reveal to you the second secret of life. Here she is. It takes 2 people to make you, and 1 people to die. That's how the world is going to end. Your friend, William Faulkner. One of my friends in the war had a bullet go straight into his eye. And naturally he died. He died and he had this dream, as if all kinds of outlandish animals came to him to play. There were giraffes, with ladders where their necks should be, and elephants, with apples where their legs should be, and penguins, who looked like windmills, and bright red kangaroos, and a bunch of other unusual creatures, and with them they brought an enormous beach ball and started to toss it around. When my friend's turn came to catch it, he suddenly, for a few moments, came back to life and started to tell his dream to the nurse at his bedside. Really, she thought he was tripping, and after he told it, he again died and never came back to life. So they laid him in a casket and buried him in the ground, and still whenever I go to visit him at his grave, I think that here, 6 feet under the ground, lies my pal, and he is having outlandish dreams. My pal died. And appeared to me in all his glory. Appeared, looking like the statue of a military commander. And between us, the following trivial conversation took place. My pal. you know, the world is finite. Me! Yeah, I read about that. Henry James wrote it. My pal. And you know, the world is infinite. Me! Yeah, I read about that. Dostoevsky wrote it. My pal. And you know, life is useless. Me! Yeah, I read it. Beckett. My pal. And you know, love is a passing thing. My pal. Yeah, read it. Tolstoy. Was it really worth dying just to find out these things were true? And at that, my pal burst wide open. He began his performance. Create chaos. That is the meaning of life. Create chaos everywhere and in every way. Lie to your friends and deceive your teachers. Izminять, cheat on your wife and promise your heart to a woman you do not love. Etch your name into the varnish on the desk at your parents' house. Shatter the windows at a sporting goods store and knock your beloved around daily. Live only for yourself and promise your heart to a woman you do not love. Drink alcohol and cuss in front of children. Talk back to the elderly and consider yourself smarter than anyone you know. Regularly offend skinheads on the street and be beaten by them until you are dead. Die. And continue the chaos. Gift of eloquence vanished. He came over to me and stretched out his white, casted arm. I nonchalantly took it. My wages. By his death, everyone gets satisfaction. Heaven offended. Laws violated. Girls led astray. Families dishonored. Wives ruined. Relatives outraged. Husbands driven to despair. Everyone on the earth is satisfied. Oh, I am the only unlucky one. I am all alone. Ooh. My wages. Jean-Baptiste Molière, Don Juan, Spenarel's monologue. 1 year ago, to the date, I celebrated my 25th birthday. I understood it all. I see all kinds of things. I like contemporary pop music and advertising billboards. I like myself. I have eyes. That everybody knows. But what I do not have is that something which is attractive. One of my pals, he did not have eyes. He lost them back in the 5th grade due to an unfortunate accident. But he had so much about him that was attractive. I started to envy him. For one, he had a super cool old school overcoat. For another, he always had snow. Always, in the summer and the winter and the fall. He kept it in a freezer box, that snow. And never did he ever use and never did he ever make coffee using water from the tap. He preferred to melt snow into Turkish coffee. He would say, "We're gonna drink coffee from snow." And the overcoat he had was attractive. It was old, green. In it, he looked like a cowboy who had just been freed from the noose. I envy him. I have eyes, and I can see. I have a freezer, and I can also keep snow in there, and I can get myself an overcoat someplace, and I've seen Jim Jarmusch's films, but I am unable to do things attractively. That power is given only to people without eyes. I can even say, snow and overcoat. I can see these things, but my pal, he has them. He has them inside of him. He has a super cool, old school overcoat and snow in a freezer box. Look! I am fair. I have skinny fingers and a beautiful ring made of silver. I have good taste and talent. I know how to make shrimp gumbo, and I can hold my liquor pretty well. I fell and fucked up my overcoat. I left my stocking cap on the bus, and I don't know how to fix the bathroom faucet, and I don't know how to make a shelf for all my books. I am unloved by my beloved. And by my other beloved, I am also unloved. I have a desire for every American soldier to march in the Gay Pride Parade. I am ready to aid in this process. Even if I knew one government secret, I would tell everyone I know. I don't like other people's secrets, only my own. But when I see a traitor, I want to be rude to him because I know that he is not me. At home I had an apple and a plate. I spun the apple in circles on the plate and chanted, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And the voice from the apple or the plate or somewhere else, some kind of sorcerer replied, "You're the fairest, there is no doubt. You're the fairest of all the land." But wait, Sammy Mickelson from Milwaukee is a much more talented writer than you are, and Alex Shagan from New York directs much better plays than yours, and God could care less what you think about him, and there's no one waiting for you in hell, and heaven doesn't exist, and so on. So I shattered the plate, and the apple I cut into slices, and I sprinkled them with poison, and I said one apple slice to Sammy Mickelson from Milwaukee, another to Alex Shagan from New York, a third, and so on. Now they have all been poisoned, they are dead, and they are lying in pane glass coffins. So I go to the sun and I ask, "Have you seen where Sammy Mickelson lies?" I am going to wake him with my tender kisses. "Have you seen Alex Shagan?" I am going to wake him. "Have you seen?" and so on. I alone am left, the fairest of them all, because all the rest are lying in pane glass coffins. But a pane glass coffin, that's a clock. Just an ordinary clock. Glass and under it time. Glass and under it Sammy Mickelson, Alex Shagan, and so on. Bijou цветы. Смысла нет. I see flowers. There is no point. Вижу лавры. Нет смысла. I see, I catch fish. No point. Got it? No. Вчера мне было 26, сегодня 27, завтра 28. Yesterday I was 26, today I'm 27, tomorrow 28. Вижу рыб. Смысл. Цветы. At 28 years old, I see a point and I see that it's not there. This is a story about a guy who was destined for extraordinary things. From the day he was born, he looked the world straight in the eyes. He was a real go-getter. The likes of Thoreau or Emerson or Poe or someone from the category of people who were they. Although he worked as a simple security guard watching over a parking lot, in the education he got was God knows from where. Just 8 classes on the techniques for physical education. But in his soul he was a big, big artist, and he could even kind of paint. And then one day it just so happened he got drunk on a bunch of wine made from dandelions. His head had spun and he decided then to go and kill his own wife. Because she would not make him dinner because of her impatient nature, and because she went and fell in love with another man. This is how he did it. He skewered her body with a piece of steel wire. And naturally to prison he went to a labor camp where the rigid workday, etc. But then in prison he was able to acquire a brush, paint, paper, and he painted a paysage of mountains and trees. When later that painting made it to a contest among other corrective labor colonies. The contest was called the Rockies, and there tear that painting of his won first place at PBS, even shot a story about his life. That's how this man's dream came true, and he became an artist. But now I look at him and think to myself, what if it had been me who got drunk on that magical wine and won that contest? On my birthday, 29 years old, I got a book with Chekhov's plays in it. I'm rereading them. From Chekhov's from Astrov's monologue in Akopyan, everything in a person should be entirely beautiful. Their face and their clothes and their soul and their thoughts. Nonsense. I once knew a guy who was blighted with such a wretchedly awful face that even cab drivers refused to pick him up. And the way he dressed, that was really something from hell. He wore an old wrinkled up shirt, his pants were covered in some kind of buttery stains, and if you want to talk about the soul, it was cold as stone. Stone cold soul. But then the thoughts he had were entirely interesting. Maybe that's because Thoreau had always been for him his biggest idol. For example, he thought like this. The violin is an instrument of magic. By the sounds of the violin, people cry internal tears. That is, tears that drip down not the outside, but the inside. A person cries and tears stream down their ribs and along their spine, washing out their heart. And he also thought, symphonies of the world are magnificent. They wake up the imagination and put you into a lethargic trance. That way a person doesn't even know whether they are dead or sleeping. He thought the same way about philosophy. The way he saw it, the mind was a sphere. And from that they were able to determine that the world was round, just like a globe. But I repeat, on the outside it was an absolute freak show. Short, bald, hunchbacked, with the skull of a monkey, and not only that, but deaf. He wrote symphonies, but whenever he was asked, "Do you love me?" he would answer, "Huh?" and smile, a confused smile. And then one day I blurted out the opinion that he's in some way really similar to a lot of really great people similar to Paganini, and to Socrates, and to Beethoven, and to someone else, and at the very moment that I realized this similarity, my life changed radically. Now, instead of every dirty and downtrodden person lying on the stoop of some building, I am ready to see Paganini, and Socrates, and Beethoven, and others like them. Because of this, I had to start accepting all people just exactly the way they are. I mean, how do I know who's lying in front of me in that springtime puddle? Maybe it's just Socrates lounging about! So now I'm going to argue against this drunken Astrov. Everything in a person should be entirely terrible! Their face, and their clothes, and their soul, and even their thoughts, because the very most terrible thoughts are often the very most wonderful. 10 years ago I was 20, that means, according to the prophecy, in 1 year I'll be dead, somehow. In 2 years I will have graduated from being a part-time student at a technical institute. Strange fact, so. I was riding a greyhound and reading Kant, Critique of Pure Reason, not because I'm some sort of S-head, or because I'm inclined to philosophize, and not because I was trying to look like an intellectual, but simply because I had to get ready for an exam in philosophy. I have this instructor, a woman who considers herself the lover of Hume, Hegel, Kant, and also another professor at university, Stragel Josef Davidovich, and she is absolutely certain that they are all head over heels for her, and thus it henceforth follows a priori that we should all be crazy about them too, so that I was in a greyhound, reading Kant, and sitting in the front row, and one row behind me in the second rode an invalid, missing one leg. By the way, this was the first time that I realized the word invalid can disseminate in meaning and apply to young people too. Before, whenever anyone would pronounce the word invalid, I would imagine some old dirty veteran with sad despondent eyes. Yeah, I'm sure that's how it ends up being in most cases, but as it turns out, even a young woman with trepidating tits can be an invalid because she suffers from valvular heart disease. And the invalid sitting in the row behind me was at the very oldest 30, and sitting across from him rode a real-life, genuine Jehovah's Witness, propagating the practice of keeping one's chin up, and they were having an argument. As it turns out, the main key word that the invalid used was the term, not so sure. Life has been given to us as a trial, said the optimistic Jehovah's Witness. Not so sure, replied the invalid. You can certainly not deny the fact that physical death exists. I'm not denying it, but I'm still not sure all the way. And then their dialogue followed thus. Well now, take what's sitting in your hand. There's Pepsi in your bottle. Are you sure about that? Not completely. Then, take a sip. I'm not thirsty. Later I found out by listening to their conversation that the invalid had lost all of whatever belief he once had to the passionate love he had for a woman. He once, as it turned out, had a wife who he loved to a really kind of insane degree while she loved him just ordinarily. The invalid thought she was just being apathetic and shattered dishes on the wall in the kitchen, knocked his wife around, screamed, and did everything he could to make her go crazy just like him. However, she was a calm, sober-minded woman, and not only that, but unfortunately marvelously beautiful, and that only made him go further out of his mind. So then the invalid, only at this time he had not yet become an invalid, he took a corkscrew and he plucked out the eye of his beloved. He went and he plucked so that she would throw a fit. But she did not throw a fit. Instead, she fell into unconsciousness, and they took her away in an ambulance. And while she did not file a lawsuit against him, she was still not about to keep living with such a husband. So then, in grieving, calamity, and fear, he took his leg and he laid it on the tracks under a streetcar. That is to say, he became an invalid for the rest of his life. And from that day forward, he was not so sure about anything. So there I am, in a Greyhound, in the front row, reading Kant's Space. Then is a necessary representation, a priori, which serves as the foundation for all external intuitions. We never can imagine or make a representation to ourselves of the non-existence of space, though we can easily enough think that there are no objects in it. Thinking about my wife. Could I too really take the corkscrew of love from the kitchen table and turn her into a cyclops? Could I too really be capable of loving? Closing the book of Kant, I say to myself, not so sure. 3 street sweepers, like the 3 graces, appear to me with the question, who of them is the most fair? Only they all appeared to be in different incarnations. The first street sweeper materialized inside my imagination. The second I saw in the painting by Georgian artist Pirosmani, while the third swept the street below my window. The one inside my imagination began begging right away that I give my preference to him. Come on, I'm like fucking great. I'm like something so unique. I have you know this kind of look about me, he screamed. And all of a sudden, I had a very clear memory of when my granddad died. My mom and I were going to pay him a visit, when just outside our door I got scared about seeing someone dead. Dead people really scared me when I was a child. And my mama, feeling sorry for me, allowed for me not to go. Just then, a street sweeper came out the door with a broom. For some reason, he looked at me with such sadness that I started to cry. I felt sorry for my granddad, sorry that he died. But childhood tears are like pictures, you know, which afterwards you glance upon within your mind's eye, and at the funny ones you cry, while at the sad ones you laugh. If ever you remember how great it was to be a child, everything gets worse right away. But that street sweeper, I have remembered him my entire life. He has settled down in my memory for the duration of time, and now he is here demanding that I call him the fairest of all 3. Although, to be honest, I have to say that the second street sweeper is closer to my heart. He looks out at me from the painting by my favorite artist, and I understand that I myself painted it. I painted them all. And street sweeper, and street musician, and old gondola in Tivoli's. Pirosmani, that's me. Although what difference does it make who's Pirosmani? There my neighbor was also Pirosmani. She was, and then she fell off her rocking chair, beat up her tailbone, and took her last applause. Pirosmani, Picasso, Braille, could be anyone at all, and it totally doesn't require the ability to paint. You just go up to the painting, you look, and you understand that it is you. For that reason, I didn't see any value in giving my preference to the second street sweeper, not to mention that he never says anything at all out loud. He just follows me behind me on his tiptoes and watches sullenly. That's it. The third street sweeper pleases me least of all. He curses like a sailor from the early morning on. He eats sunflower seeds off the ground. He has got to have all kinds of worms in his stomach. It's true, a man with worms on the inside can also be fair. Fair in his mother's eyes, for example. In a word, 3 street sweepers appeared to me like the three graces, appear to Paris, and they are demanding an answer. They remind me of the icon Trinity. There, too, three angels are sitting and watching, and they're all great. There's no way to distinguish one from the other. I wish those street sweepers would just sit behind a table and hover above the ground with their wings, if they would just leave me alone. But then you lay down to sleep, you close your eyes, and there are those sweepers. Ooh, ah, is the most beautiful. Is not so красивый. Which of us is the most beautiful? Asking and tickling me with their brooms. Today is the 31st of December. I am 31 years old. One of my pals was alive. That's not to say they've all died, it's just that I only really ever had one pal, while all the rest were to me like distant acquaintances. Anyway, this pal of mine was a very good person. He did a lot for me. He helped me when I had money problems, gave me moral support, gave me presents, and bought for me an overcoat. However, unfortunately, I was unable to pay him back in turn. I went for long periods without calling, forgot to wish him happy birthday, told him little white lies even when there was no reason to, just bent the truth, that's all. But all the same, he continued to give me love, not to mention that this pal of mine was to me my own dear father. It's true, one time he told me something that was untruthful, and from that moment our disagreements began. One day, when I was 6 years old, we went out to the river. She was incredibly beautiful, that river. I was watching, when all of a sudden a horse walked straight up to us, so close that we could almost touch it with our hands. Look at what a beautiful horse that is, said my father. But that horse there was not beautiful at all. She was just an ordinary horse. My father deceived me. However, a lot of other people fall into the same kind of deception when they say things like, look at what a beautiful little girl, or what beautiful drawings that little Vincent made. But the girl there is nothing special, just a girl that's it. And those drawings little Vincent made are very bad. Are those even drawings? But I don't hold anything against all the rest. And still, I got mad at my dad that day. I mean, he was my only pal. Well, and now we are acquaintances. Сын, это для главного. Your son is the most important. И дочь для главного. And your daughter is the most important. И то, что тебе пожилая женщина в метро улыбается, тоже для главного. And that an elderly woman in the subway smiled at you, that is also the most important. And you beat your dog, and you don't call your mother for weeks. You cheat on your wife because it is most important. At a bus station, I saw a drunk young woman who was crying about that which is most important, not just because. And that rich banker was killed because it was most important. And that prostitute was left without being paid for the very same reason. Street thugs, because it is most important, bust each other's noses open. Girls swallow their grandmother's sleeping pills in hopes that they will make it to pump their stomachs. It is for the most important. It is most important that the elderly grow old and the young appear on this earth. It is most important that railroad cars jump the tracks and that tender words are pronounced to whomever they are pronounced to. The son of an acquaintance for 7 years pumped heroin through his veins, and that mother of his was, for all those years, still a mother to him. And all of that is the most important, just like scrapes on your hands, just like insomnia, just like curse words tagged on the sides of garages, just like love. Любовь всегда для главного. Once for a whole month, I loved the one that is not my beloved, and my beloved I did not love. Everything on earth is the most important. The sunset over Flathead Lake, the homosexual priest, Julia from Missoula, lying marijuana plants, conscience, blue huckleberries, death. And you know, my mother once asked me, what's the most important thing to you? So, same thing that it is to you, I answered. Your skin is fair and your eyes are like 2 jewels in the sky. Your back is straight and your hair is smooth on the pillow where you lie. But I don't feel affection, no gratitude or love. Your loyalty is not to me, but to the stars above. One more cup of coffee for the road. One more cup of coffee before I go to the valley below. First of September, my son is going to his first class. We bought for him a new suit, book bag, and books, and a bouquet of flowers for his teacher. And went to see him off. We are walking, the three of us, through autumn streets, keeping up the leaves. My wife, my son, and me. I am 32 years old. Мне 32 года. I am 32 years old! That's the answer. And how many roads must a man